Okay, so hello and welcome to another Caseware webinar. Today we'll be taking a look at iXBRL tagging. This is a part 2 of a 3-part series, so be sure to sign up to the following iXBRL. I believe it's a common tagging errors after this. That webinar will be popping up at the end. My name's James and I'll be hosting today's webinar alongside the fantastically fabulous Phil, who will be presenting today. Phil's one of our education and media consultants, so we're in good hands today. We'll also be running a live Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. So for any questions that you have, please do pop them in via the Q&A button, which is just on the next screen there, Phil. Perfect. Yeah, so just through the Q&A button there, and please do use the chat button for any kind of technical issues that you have with the webinar. It just means that we can sort out the Q&A questions for the end a lot easier that way. A recording of today's session will be made available on both our knowledge base and our YouTube channel. So be sure to go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel to keep up to date with any of the latest videos we release there. I'm now going to hand you over to Phil to cover the agenda.
Yes, thank you, James. And yeah, thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. As James has mentioned, this is the second part of the 3-part series looking at tagging. So if anyone missed the first part, which was an introduction to tagging, then James will let you know at the end where you need to go within in terms of, as he's already mentioned, YouTube and a knowledge base to be able to access those recordings. Anyone who's obviously attended one of our webinars before will be well aware of the fact that we do save them on the various media outlets. So the agenda today, we're going to be looking specifically at some of the more advanced areas of tagging. So some manual tagging, areas that require the manual tagging. So these are not obviously within Caseware, the majority of standard content that you have available to you is manually tagged, is automatically tagged. But there are some areas where you would need to go into, and because they might be text sections or custom notes, you need to manually apply the tags for that to be able to be submitted to Companies House or Hmrc. A part of that is the taxonomy dialog screen. So we go into the iXBRL tagging window and we'll have a look at the options available within there, the types of tags that you can have, how and where you need to look out for the right to make sure you apply the right tag with the right numerical context. And all of that words like that. Again, Kieran did cover in our first webinar, but we'll cover across some of those areas. We will go through an example of some manual tagging and some points to look out for within the accounting policies, the detailed profit and loss account. We will dip into some notes as well to show you what to expect if you have inserted rows, for example, into the creditors note. Yeah, for those of you who do, as I say, my colleague James has dropped a recording of the first webinar into the chat function, so you do have a link to that as well. And again, this one will be going up onto the YouTube page. So some examples of areas where we may need to apply manual tagging. As you can see on the screen, related party transactions, controlling parties, directors report sections. So these are custom directors report sections. If you've gone through and added your own area in, and that needs to be tagged for submission purposes. Obviously, for small company filings, you wouldn't obviously include your director's report. Custom notes, so it could be any custom note that's been inserted into the accounts will not be automatically tagged. Obviously, the reason for that is that Caseware doesn't know the layout of the note that you've included. It doesn't know what you've included in terms of text and cells and table formats, so that will always need to be manually tagged. Custom accounting policies, and as you can see, some areas of subsidiary undertakings. You can see on this list there isn't detailed profit and loss account, and the reason for that is that the detailed profit and loss account, provided you're using the correct taxonomy, will be automatically tagged. Now, again, the caveat being making sure you're using the correct taxonomy, but also, and as you'll see in the example today, it may be that you've automatically tagged that that detailed profit and loss account, but we may need to tailor the tag slightly and adjust the tags, especially if we're picking up specific pieces of information within, for example, the admin expenses, if you're using the spare codes. Okay, so we are going to jump straight into a Caseware file and just have a look at some areas and some things you need to look out for when it comes to manually tagging the account. So as I mentioned, the way that you can double check or see when you've gone through and applied the tags. So in this file, and again, for those of you who may have missed the first part of this webinar series, in the first part, we talked about loading the taxonomies and applying tags. So you can see in this file that I've already loaded a taxonomy in. We've got the 2021 UK FRS 102 with DPL taxonomy. For HMRC submissions, DPL taxonomy, you can't use the DPL taxonomy if you're submitting to Companies House. That will be flagged up as and when you go through and try and generate the iXBRL. Again, the third part of this webinar series will be looking at specific tagging errors. So I tagged this document on the 30th of the 5th, 2022. So about a week and a half ago now. As you can see over here, it will tell me when this document was tagged. Now, if I review the tags via the review tool on the XBRL toolbar, what we're hopefully going to see on this file is that a large percentage of this file, as I've retained the standard content within the file, will be automatically tagged. And that will be indicated by a large number of green boxes that should appear throughout this set of financial statements on things like the name of the company, the year-end date. That's just within the cover page. And then when we go through, so as you can see, the green boxes will indicate automatic tagging has been applied to these cells. As you can see, as I said, a large majority of the financial statements are automatically tagged. But when we get down to some areas, related party transactions, controlling parties note, these notes will not be automatically tagged. And as I've already mentioned, the reason for that is that these are pretty much input text areas. Now, I've already gone through and selected this box here, but what you'll see if you've got a controlling party note in your financial statements, you'll get a message at the top just indicating that the controlling party note has iXBRL tagging requirements. Now, the reason why we've introduced this is very much because of the fact that in a lot of cases, people weren't coming down to the controlling parties note and applying the tags. And then when that would go through to HMRC or Companies House, they would question as to why there aren't tags applied for this specific piece of text. So we brought in this message. If I click to view, it will then prompt me that I need to go into a specific part of the taxonomy, the notes and detailed disclosures and related party section, and apply some tags to this section within the controlling party note. Again, very similar to related party transactions. If anyone wants some specific ideas of what needs to be tagged on related party transactions, please let us know and we can drop over a video that we've got on our knowledge base. Again, the process that we're going to follow, I'm going to look at controlling parties, but it can be applied to, as I've already mentioned, related party transactions or other text sections and text notes that you may insert as custom notes within the financial statements. Now, with these areas, controlling parties and related party transactions, there is no requirement for us to tag absolutely everything on this table. You don't need to go through and tag every single row, every single line. You need to tag specific pieces of information throughout this text section. Now, if I jump back into our PowerPoint slide, we've got a screenshot with an example on the first and second paragraph of some of the tags that you might need. So we've got an example of the name of the ultimate parent of the group, if not the parent undertaking, the name of the ultimate parent undertaking. And then what we would need is specific tags for the smallest and the largest group. So things like the name of the parent or the country in which the parent of the smallest group is incorporated, and then the address. And as you can probably guess, on the largest paragraph, we would need pretty much the same thing, but instead of name of the parent of the smallest group, it'll be the name of the parent of the largest group. Now, as you can see, we're not tagging, as I said, all of the text. We're tagging individual sections within that text area. Now, when it comes to Caseware itself, if I try to tag this entire area at the moment, or try to tag a specific piece of text by highlighting, when we apply the tags, and you're going to see this I'll go through and I'll show you when we go through and apply the tag. What you will see is that it will just tag the whole thing. because all of this, when you highlight it, is considered one area in terms of Caseware and the way the tagging works. So what you need to do is go through and set some cells up for these different areas within the financial statements. So we need a cell for this, we need a cell for this, we need a cell for the name of the smallest group, we need a cell for the country of incorporation and for the address. Now, to create those cells, we need to access a different view within Caseware working papers. So we have to go to View, and we have to go to Enable Editing. Now, when we jump into Enable Editing, it's going to pop us a message to unlock Enable Editing. So Enable Editing is password protected. If you don't have the password for it, or you're unaware of it, please feel free to contact a super user at your firm who should be able to provide you details of that. I'll click OK, and that will load up the Enable Editing window. Now, as you can see, the view is slightly different in Enable Editing to what we saw within the form mode that we were in before. So there's 3 modes within Caseware: form mode and Enable Editing are the main 2 that you can access. We can't access the design mode within the software. But when we're on here, we essentially need to create cells, as I've mentioned, for these different sections. And to do that, we can go to this insert button that wasn't previously available within the form mode. So I go to insert and I can insert a cell. For those of you that love a shortcut, Control and L on the keyboard will also do the trick. When that loads up, we've got the opportunity to enter a cell number. So again, the cell number within Caseware should be, for any custom sections, USX followed by a corresponding number. That could be obviously 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. What I would suggest is if you're inserting cells into like the director's report, and then you're inserting cells into the controlling party note. Again, if anyone wants some detailed information on inserting cells, let us know. But just to make sure that, I don't know, for the director's report, you start with number 1000, and then for the controlling party note, you start on maybe 2000, so that there isn't a chance of you trying to use the same cell number in 2 different areas of the financial statements. So just based on that, I'm going to call it USX 2000 and click OK. So I'm creating a cell at this point for the Tagged Holding Company Limited. I previously selected just to the left-hand side of the wording, just to make sure that that was where I was going to create this cell. When we go through, we load up the new cell properties window. So the cell number is USX2000. The cell type at the moment is numeric. We've got other cell types you can include. Numeric would be obviously for when we're looking at the related party transactions, any amounts owed to group undertakings or any transactions that have taken place. When we're tagging the numeric item, we would use the numeric cell type. Alphanumeric for any text information, like we use in here. If we've got dates, then we use a date cell. And those are the main 3 for tagging purposes. So we're going to go alphanumeric, as I've said, because we're including text. Now, we want to include Tagged Holding Company Limited within this cell. So we can go into this input field here. So this is the calculation field, and we can type in Tagged Holding Company Limited. Now I've done that, just physically typing it in, and you can see below that the calculated value says there is an error in the calculation. So just something to be aware of. If you are going to go through and insert the name within the calculation field, just make sure that you insert it within speech marks. And as you can see, the calculated value is now appearing the way that we have typed it into the section here. If you want to be able to adjust it inside the form mode, so if you don't want to have to keep coming into Enable Editing and going into the cell properties to change this cell and the wording within it, then make sure that you set it up as a input cell. So we go input cell here and click OK. As you can see, that will turn it into a blue input cell, so I can overtype that if I was back into the form mode. And then we would just remove the existing text. So when you need these cells, it's simply a case of inserting them and replacing the existing text that is in your controlling party note with the text that we need to include, but obviously just within a cell, so that we can then go through and tag it. Just to point out, when we insert a new cell, So if I wanted one for Tag PLC Limited, we can see that the cell number will automatically select the next cell number available after the one that I inserted. So the first one was 2000, this is 2001. So click OK. And then what we'd see here is that the cell properties from the last cell are retained. So alpha, it's already an alphanumeric cell, it's already an input cell, and we would just simply go through and insert the text that we need. So tagged PLC and click OK, and that would create our cell. Easy as that. You wouldn't have to go through and really do anything else, but go obviously then create the cells for tagged iXBRL PLC, for this address, and then also one for the country of incorporation. Now, I'm not going to go through and bore you creating all those cells. I am going to go full Blue Peter on everyone and jump back into another file where you can see I've already gone through and created the appropriate cells. I've only done it for the first and second paragraph because you'll get the general gist of how it works when we're looking at the second paragraph. With regards to the largest group, they are pretty much the same, but obviously one's referring to a large and one's referring to the smallest group. The only cell I haven't gone through and created is one for the United Kingdom. And the reason for that is that I wanted to point out the specifics of this cell. Now, all the other cells that we've got here have got text in them, but for the country of incorporation, you, instead of inserting a cell and typing in United Kingdom, what you would instead do is insert a cell and leave it blank. Now, the reason for that is that the cell itself provides the information about the country of incorporation through something that we call a type dimension. So we'll go through and show you how to insert the dimensional context into or for the United Kingdom. But when you're creating this cell, you will want to create just a blank cell. Now, because of that, and because we're only using this for tagging purposes, and because it is a blank cell, we do want to make sure that we turn off the import option. And we also want to make sure we turn off the display only option. And then we click OK. And that creates a cell for us here. There's absolutely nothing in there at the moment. But because it's display only, when we're going into the print preview options within the accounts, there won't be a larger space there between in and the United Kingdom, or sorry, the and the United Kingdom. We'll still have a standard size gap, but this cell will be there so that we can see it and we can tag it for the tagging purposes.
Hi, Phil. We just had a question come in. I just thought it was an opportune moment for it. The question is, how would the cell creation work when the ultimate and immediate parent are one and the same entity?
If the ultimate and the immediate parent are the same entity, you'd only have to tag it once.
Perfect.
Because as per the, if I just bring back, I won't put it up as a slide. The ultimate parent of the group if it's not the parent entity. So if it's not there is another tag in there. This is just an example. There is another tag in there that's just the parent entity, and you would just tag it as that one.
Wonderful. Thank you, Phil.
This is only, this is an example just to show you if there are groups and parents of smallest and largest groups, just to give you a range of the different tags that are available within the software. Now, as you can see, this tag here that we've inserted is not an input cell. As I say, we don't want to accidentally overtype anything in there. Otherwise, the tag won't work. We'll get an error message come through when we go through and run the iXBRL. Again, for examples of those tagging errors, just a little plug. Please feel free to, or please join us for the common tagging errors webinar that we've got in a few weeks. Details of that will be at the end of the webinar. Now, in terms of tagging this is where we need to access the documents tagging window. So we can do that by going to tools at the top on the case view toolbar, going to iXBRL, and we've got the option here for tags. So the tags option will allow us to select tags from within the taxonomy to apply to our table throughout the account. So if I go to tags, you can see it will automatically load an associated taxonomy. Now that associated taxonomy is based on the taxonomy that I've selected when I've gone to this drop down and selected the taxonomy from the list. So again, if you're unsure as to whether that's correct, if you've selected the right taxonomy from this drop down, then this associated taxonomy will be correct. You should not need to change this. The only instance where you may need to actually select a taxonomy and add one in would be if you were tagging anything from within the note builder tool. So for now, I can click OK, and I would be able to load through the taxonomy, the iXBRL document tagging window, which obviously has the various tags from the taxonomy within it. Now, as you can see, I'll select on all these tags and nothing is tagged at the moment. The way that we can tell that is that everything on this screen is grayed out. But if we go up to a section, so for example, creditors, and select a tag, you can see that it will highlight for us the tag that is being used for this section. So we've got, in this case, it's grayed out, but I will highlight it in blue just so you can see it a little bit clearer on your screens. Other creditors has been tagged. The context here is current, active period, end date. You can see there's a whole host and a minefield of appropriate contexts that are available. One thing I would point out, and the most easiest way to remember which one should be used is in most cases, if you're referring to a balance sheet item, then it will be an active period end date tag or prior period end date if we're looking at the prior year. But if you're looking for a P&L code or an information that refers to the entire period, like obviously the P&L does, then it would just have the tag of active period. So just to show that, for example, go up to the statement of comprehensive income, click on turnover, you can see it's got active period as the context. But if we go to the balance sheet and select on debtors, you can see it's current. So for the current year, active period, end date. They are the two most common ones for the active period. And then obviously they're very similar for the prior period. If I clicked on there, just say instead of active, it's a prior period end date. Again, it is important that we select the right context for the tag that we're applying this information to. Otherwise, once again, it can result in common tagging errors that we see when we go through and generate the iXBRL. And again, that will be highlighted during the common tagging errors webinar. And for areas that, and just for your information, if I just review these tags quickly, just to give you, we will go back to our controlling party, but I want to make sure that you guys are aware of exactly how this screen works. If we've got items that we've manually inserted, so for example, the director's loan account below the other creditors that I've circled on this screen, the director's loan account window isn't, or row isn't tagged. And the way that we can tell that is, as you can see, there is no highlight when I've gone back to the review tool. But other creditors is tagged. Now, we've manually allocated this out for demonstratory purposes, but director's loan account would generally be included within Caseware in the other creditors row. So if we needed to tag these as the same thing when we're going through and tagging and applying the tags within the taxonomy, what you would be able to do, and one thing to remember, is that Caseware will remember the last tag that you have selected. So when I've selected other creditors, if I select director's loan account, you can see it remembers the other creditors tag from the other cell. Same if I go to corporation tax up here, and then I select this, it remembers the last tag. So that should make it a little bit easier when you're using the iXBRL document tagging window to be able to apply tags, because it will remember not just the tag, but also the context and numeric that's being used. So I could go through and tag these quite quickly. Now that's something to bear in mind, especially around the context and numeric options when you're going through and tagging your own custom content. Now, just to give you an idea quickly of this window, I've shown you it, but just to give you an run through the options. Tag will tag any information. Ignore. Well, generally, you wouldn't click tag if you want to ignore something, but if you did tag something and wanted to untag it, ignore will also untag that, but you will get the option to remove the tag. The next option will jump to the next cell or the next undealt with piece of data within the financial statements. You've got roles, so there are roles and pieces of information within the iXBRL document tagging window for each section. So as you can see here, there's a section for the balance sheet, there's a section for the income statement. Entities information for things like the name of the entity, reporting information for things like the date, the balance sheet date, the start date for the period covered. All of these areas are automatically tagged within the software, but you do have them available within the list if you do create any custom content throughout the accounts. For a lot of the notes, and as we saw when I went into the iXBRL tagging warning message, the tags that we need are within the notes and detailed disclosures and related party section. So to find that, I can go to the drop down here, I can go to notes and detailed disclosures. And if I really wanted to, I could scroll through this big long list until I find related party transaction or the related party section. Not something I would particularly suggest. I mean, it is just here, so it's quite easy for us. But the easiest way to do it is if you go to Shift, and if you want to find any tag, hold down the Shift button on your keyboard and press this icon in the corner. And what that will do is that will collapse everything into nice, neat folders. So now if I take my hand off the Shift button, click back onto the cross icon, you can see that I can now expand just individual sections throughout the window. So I can go to related party transactions, into related party sections. And within here, there is a section for relationships between entities and parent. And as you can see, all those tags that I mentioned that I need, parent of the smallest group in which the results are consolidated, name of the parent entity, are all included within this particular section. And then it's just a case of going through and applying the tags. Now, it is as simple as selecting a cell, finding the tag that you want to use. So as I said previously, this is the name of the parent of group. And again, I'll just bring this across, name of the parent of the group, if not the parent entity. So we can select that particular tag and we can press tag. Now, while I'm doing that, we need to go through and adjust the context, because the context is the date of the audit or accountant's report, which is the default for any cells that aren't tagged at all if we haven't gone through and selected something else. So I would need to go through this list and find active period. Potentially quite time consuming. So just again, as a quick hint, we can go remove the tag quickly, jump up into the statement of comprehensive income or your income statement, profit and loss account, whatever you want to call it. Find a cell that'll have the right context on it. Go back to the controlling party note, select our cell, and then we just go through that process of finding the right tag. So we can go to roles again, we can go to notes and detailed disclosures. Then we can minimize the section and we can do it that way. The quick way to do it though would be to go to here, controlling party, select the cell, select tag, and then find the context. It sounds weird, but if you go to the drop down and try and find it that way, it will often revert this back to notes and detailed disclosures. At this point, you can then go to Control and F for the find, and then find name of parent, and that will take you down to the name of parent section. So we can go to the tag, find the tag that we want, name of parent, and the context will be active period. In this case, the numeric. So the numeric is referring to what is this, a number? Is it text? Is it a percentage? What is this piece of information? Well, tagged holding company limited, I'm sure we can all agree, isn't a figure. So it's not really reporting currency. It can't be percentage because it's not a percentage. It's not a number. So for pieces of text, you would use the no units of measure option. And then we would just go through and apply the tags to the other areas. So we've got the name of the ultimate parent. So the name could be the name of the controlling party, tag, and then we can go through and we can apply the tags to the smallest and the largest group. So name of this is the smallest group, name of the parent, the smallest group in which the results are consolidated, the address. Now, as I say, for the country of incorporation, we want to tag this blank cell. Now, just something to be aware of, when we're tagging a blank cell, if I just tag that as country in which the parent of the smallest group is incorporated, once again, you will get an error message when you go through and generate the iXBRL. And the reason for that is, if you tag it as country in which the parent of the smallest group is incorporated, Caseware has absolutely no idea what country that is, and nor will the taxonomy. So what you'll need to do in that instance is right-click, go to new dimensional context, and create a dimensional context for this. So basically, this context is telling Caseware and telling the taxonomy exactly the country that this parent of the smallest group was incorporated. So you only need to provide, really, as it says, information about the country. So that's this first drop down here. So just to show you that again, I've right-clicked on country in which the parent of the smallest group is incorporated. You right-click on the tag you want to use, because then it pulls through the correct screen in this instance with the correct hypercube. So a hypercube is just information and the correct role within the tag and the taxonomy. There are quite a few, as you can see. So you want to make sure you pull through the right one. You haven't got to look for it. Then we can go to country and region. We select the drop down and we just find the right country. Unfortunately, these are not in alphabetical order, but if I scroll down, I will find the United Kingdom. Probably need to look a little bit slower than I am.
I believe it was just before the end there, probably about 3/4 down.
Good eyes, James. There we go, United Kingdom, and then we click OK. Then we just provide some information about the tag. So that give it a name, country of incorporation, UK, or smallest, or whatever you want to. It's up to what you call that tag. You could call it country in which the parent of the smallest group. This is going to populate in the context, by the way, not the tag itself. We're creating a context of the tag because active period isn't relevant for this entity. We want to specifically tell the tell Caseware and eventually, obviously, Hmrc and Companies House that we are in this company is incorporated in the UK. So that's been done via the context, not via the actual tag itself. We then go through and provide a reporting date. So active period, where we're in this controlling party note, we are always referring to the active period because we're talking about now, to the end, to the full period, to the beginning of the period, or to the end of the period. End of the period for the balance sheet would be the standard dimension that would be used. We're talking about the entire period, so we'd be to the full period. And then you just need to populate your schema and identifier. You don't ever need to know what these are. You just need to select one of the other tags. The schema and identifier on every single tag is the same. So select one of the default tags and just copy your schema and identifier into the cell. Click OK. And now on that cell, we've selected our tag. We applied the tag. But instead of the context of active period, as I said, we've gone through and we created our own context to tell Caseware that this is a UK company. So we go down the drop down, and at the bottom is the country of incorporation, UK. Then we click OK. Now, as I said, in the upcoming webinar, looking at the common tagging errors, we'll talk about what happens if you put text in there, and also potentially what could happen if your tag is incorrect. So some of the error messages that can pop up if you do manually tag an area and it is wrong. Now, if I go back to the review feature, on this screen, just to show you what the colors and the color scheme and how that will work. This won't appear in green because of the fact that these are not manual tags. So again, Caseware will point out using the review feature any manual tags that have been applied throughout the financial statements with this sort of greeny, olivey color that you can see on the screen. Other colors that we can include, we can see via the diagnostic options. So if I go to diagnostics, this will run a check of all the different tags that have been included within the financial statements. And if I run that diagnostics, this is a good overview for you if you want to be able to see any custom tags you've inserted, or sorry, any manual tagging you've done, any tags that have potentially been removed, or any tags that you have gone through and or any automatic tags that have been applied. So you can see here, custom additions, we've got 5, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5 that we've inserted. The matching tags will describe any tags that are matching with the default. So the automatic tags have been applied. And as you can see, there are a fair few, nearly 7,700 just in this file. Now, Just quickly to highlight detailed profit and loss account and also the accounting policies. We'll go to the accounting policies first because it's pretty straightforward. You will see throughout the accounting policies that the default text is automatically tagged. Now, if you are going to go through and create any custom accounting policies, as I've already mentioned, they will not be tagged. So if we were to go to note and add in an extra accounting policy, that extra accounting policy will not be automatically tagged in any instance. But if we were to go to stocks and we wanted to slightly adjust this stocks accounting policy text, we could go to the insert first paragraph section, put our own text into this first paragraph and then turn off the default text. But the thing to highlight here is that, as you can see with the green outline, this text is still tagged. So Caseware will also, as well as tagging that first standard text section, it will automatically tag the user text section number 1 and also user text section number 2. So if you are going to, as I say, tweak these, make sure you use the standard one initially. And the final thing with regards to the detailed profit and loss account, as you can see, the detailed profit and loss account will again be automatically tagged within the file, provided that you use the correct taxonomy. So when we were on the iXBRL window, we had 2021 UKFRS 102 with DPL, which will automatically tag your detailed profit and loss account. If I go to tools, iXBRL and tags on the DPL, one thing just to point out is that this aircraft maintenance, and I'll just revert it back to default so you can see. I need to show the unused rows first. And just right click and remove the override on that. There we go. This is actually an admin spare row. So any areas that are spare admin codes, if we go back into tools, iXBRL and tags, just so we can see it as a fresh, will be tagged as other costs with the context of DPL admin expenses item 1. Now, again, if I show the unused rows and I go to the next admin spare code, it's item 2, item 3, item 4, item 5, item 6, 7, 8, all the way down to item number 20. So the reason why we're pointing this out to you is if you've got a spare code and that spare code is specific or a material piece of information, and it's quite that spare or that admin expense item 1 may not provide enough detail for this when it goes through Hmrc and Companies House. So what you may need to do is go through and just, as we've already done, right click and go through and create a new dimensional context. Now you might find within the list that the tag that you need is already available. As you can see, there is a comprehensive list of tags that are available. So you can see, like, for example, the depreciation, it's already depreciation expense properties. This one is admin expense type 7, but because the information is provided from the tag itself, it doesn't need a specific tag. But if it's a material balance, you may need to go through and just manually or make an adjustment to the tag, again, by adding a little bit more detail.
Hi, Phil. We just had a question come in regards to the custom tagging that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They're just wondering, does the file retain all custom tagging after it's been done, and also when you roll it forward for the next year? So basically, when you roll forward the file, will this custom tagging be present when they come to do the same thing next year?
Good question. As far as the issue that you'll have between periods is that Caseware or the taxonomy itself is often updated by those that are in charge of updating. So the FRC, who are in charge of updating taxonomies, etc. So at the moment, where I'm loading in the 2021 UKFRS 102 with DPL taxonomy, within sort of the next few weeks, months, there will be a 2022 taxonomy. And what we would always suggest is that you have the latest taxonomy on, or when you're tagging, that you tag into the latest taxonomy, just to make sure that all the right tags are in all the right places. So whilst the tags or especially on custom notes, will be retained, especially if you save out that note and save it as a knowledge library. But again, we won't go into that into too much detail. But whilst it is retained, it may be that the taxonomy is actually updated, which means you'd need to then apply the new taxonomy anyway, which means you'd need to retag the areas.
Perfect.
So if there's a change in the taxonomy, then you'll need to retag it. If there's not, then in your custom notes, if you save them, then you'll have the option to retain those tags.
No problem. So it's more of it's the nature of the beast is it gets updated. So even if you were able to hold on to your old custom tagging notes, then it might cause more headaches in the future anyway if the tagging with the taxonomy was to change.
Yeah,
perfect. Thank you.
Which is more than likely in a lot of cases. As I say, there is a 2022 taxonomy coming within the next couple of months.
Perfect. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, so we've gone through, we've highlighted detailed profit and loss. We've highlighted the balance sheet, the accounting policies. We've looked specifically at the art of manual tagging and how you apply that. The last thing I just want to do quickly and point out when we were on the iXBRL documents tagging window is that if you're going through and you're unsure as to the context and what piece of information we need to be tagging as these different areas, one thing I would always point out is just to have a look at the icons on the left-hand side. So for example, I'm on the income statement roll, the turnover icon, that looks a bit like a dollar sign. Well, it is a dollar sign. If you see a dollar sign on the label against the tag, that indicates that it's looking for a numeric value. So it's looking for a numeric tag. Again, this is important when we're looking at numerics, and we've got, at the moment, it's as it says, no unit of measure. If that was to say, if I go up to the balance sheet again, select here, that is a numeric tag, and the reporting currency is the numeric that has been selected. When I go down to our controlling parties, you can see it's a paragraph marker icon, also referred to as a backwards P. In that instance, it's looking for a specific piece of text. And because of that, the tag will have the numeric. Again, this will be applicable to the standard content within Caseware as well. It'll have the tag of no unit of measure, as you can see here. They're looking at retained earnings. The description of nature and purpose of the reserves has the paragraph marker icon, which means no unit of measure. So other areas, you might see this icon here, the sort of hashtag icon. That's looking at for a specific number. And the other one that you may see throughout, you've got the date as well, which sort of tries to look a bit like a calendar, but obviously I can understand that the screen might be slightly smaller for you guys, so you may not be able to see that, but that is a calendar icon. And you can also get a percentage icon, should a percentage be required. So if we go up tangible fixed assets, you can see this is just a number. But if it was a percentage, then you may also see a percentage icon for, as you can see, the percentage numeric. But that gives, we've got a few more minutes left. I don't mind, we don't mind overrunning by a couple of minutes. So I'll pass you back to James for any questions that anyone has on, or that we haven't already answered.
Perfect. Thank you, Phil. Yeah, just a quick reminder that if you do have any questions in the last bit of this session, then do use the Q&A button just shown on screen there. We did have one towards the start. I thought I'd save it for the end for you. It's in regards to the Hmrc guidance. So is there any Hmrc guidance specifically addressing what they expect to be tagged and what they would like, what would likely to fail a submission, basically? So any kind of guide on the tags that they want and kind of like hints towards errors that they have, I presume. We do have a webinar coming up on common iXBRL errors soon, but if you want to give it an overview, that'd be good.
Yeah, that's absolutely. So I believe there is something on our knowledge base. I will just have a quick look. One thing I will say is that if you Caseware, or if you're ever unsure as to whether something needs to be tagged or not, we would always suggest contacting directly with Hmrc. They would be able to tell you whether something's required or not. In a lot of cases, as we've already seen, Caseware will automatically tag the majority of the accounts anyway, but it's only those specific custom areas. If you've created a note specifically, so say, for example, you've created your own custom debtors note, the standard debtors note is tagged. That means the chances are your custom debtors note will need to be tagged. If it's things like controlling party note, the reason why we put that warning icon in is because people weren't, or in a lot of cases, people weren't sure whether that needed to be tagged or not. So, but if there is a specific piece of information within your account, so you're not sure whether it needs to be tagged, I'd always suggest double checking with Hmrc specifically. There will be something online for that, or with guidance for that, but I won't be able to find it in the next 3 seconds. But if I come across anything, then we'll send it across to you via an email.
No problem. Just had another one come in regards to custom audit reports. So our client has a custom audit report, and they say we'll be adding more text onto the previously tagged custom report. What's the best way to tag newly added text? I presume it's the kind of the text area that's tagged, isn't it, Phil, instead of the text itself? So you can change the data that's inside of it. Once it's been tagged, it's been tagged. Obviously, if you delete that cell out, then you'd have to reinsert a new cell, retag that one manually. But yeah, it's just in regards to the content itself, you can go ahead and change it as many times as you want. The fact remains is that cell is still tagged, and it's when you come to the generation and the submission part, it will take the information that's in that tag at that point in time, and submit it for you. So there's no issue on that front. It's not like it generates a tag. You apply a tag and then it's fixed with whatever content's in there. That also goes for any figures or numbers which are tagged as well within tables and notes. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say the section that you're tagging, in a lot of cases, especially when it's custom, is defined or is split by these soft returns, these backwards arrows. So especially on like the audit report. So if I was to change this wording, if I was on like, we haven't got an audit report in this file, but if I was to change this wording, then the section would still be defined by everything before that paragraph marker. These are just continuation markers. So as James says, if I tagged this and then changed this top wording, it would still be tagged.
Perfect.
So your answer was spot on.
Oh, thank you very much. Wonderful. So that looks like it's all our questions for today. Just a quick reminder on upcoming webinars there. So we've got one coming up on the 16th of June. We've also got a cloud audit customizations on the 30th of June. And then the one that you might be interested in, I believe it's the client who asked the question about the errors. And we've got a common iXBRL tagging errors webinar as well on the 12th. I believe it's a 30-minute session on that one. So it's a bit quicker format. But we'll be covering the majority of the common errors that you have and how to quickly resolve them so you can get your tagging and submissions out the door. And for any other further events and webinars, just jump onto our website, caseware.co.uk/events. If you just want to jump onto the next page there for me, Phil. Perfect. Just a quick reminder as well that we do have a Caseware Client Services LinkedIn page. It's separate to the main page. Following the client services Caseware page will allow you to see specifically educational content. So we do webinar updates on there. So just keeping you up to date with the latest webinars that are coming out that week, as well as any getting started guides and new content in regards to education for the software itself. So it's always good to follow that account there, as well as our YouTube channel as well. So do be sure to subscribe there as well if that's how you prefer to watch the content instead of watching it through the KB. Perfect. If you just want to click onto the next page for me there. Oh,
there we
go. No problem. And just another final reminder about the knowledge base. We will be posting this webinar to there as well as our YouTube channel. But if you have any questions or queries, do try and use the searching functionality there. And there is a small little icon in the bottom right for a chat function. So you can talk live to one of our representatives in support, and they can guide you through any queries that you have. Perfect. That rounds us up for today. Thank you for joining us, and we look to see you in the next one. Perfect. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks. Bye.